Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the Take for Market Rebellion on this hump day, this Wednesday, and an incredible day yesterday once again. And the reason I say that is because the volatility of the day. Now, I'm including the beginning of the day, the pre-market of the day, all the way through to the post-market. So if you look at the pre-market yesterday, the markets were indicated they were going to be up about triple digits yesterday. That didn't happen. Matter of fact, it was quickly flat near the opening. And then we had a fairly sharp turn to the downside, and we were off most of the day, somewhere between 75 and about 100 points for the majority of the day. But the NASDAQ, on the other hand, a little bit of a different story there. We opened up flat there and then just proceeded to move to the upside. As a matter of fact, moved significantly to the upside. A lot of that driven by those names that were selected that were going into the Dow. So first and foremost, you have to look at Amgen. Amgen had an absolutely spectacular day yesterday because of that. Starbucks had an upgrade, so that was participating pretty nicely. We had some of the Chinese names as well. You had JD, you had Baidu, we had NetEase, all performing very nicely yesterday. And then you look at some of those names that we always bring up when we're talking about something to do with the pandemic in terms of, is there something positive going on? Do we see potential out there for some sort of treatment? And you look at some of those names and it's chip related, AMD, NXPI, but Facebook, Zoom, those kind of names. And we did see a little bit of weakness, however, in some of those airlines. And that's because the previous day, because of some of that sentiment, the airlines had a pretty nice performance. So they've been moving around pretty significantly, and we've been watching these markets shift around. And yet, you look at the volatility index, and it sits there sort of planted right around 22. Call it the 21.5 to 22.5. Very, very tight range, as a matter of fact. So that does stand out. Now, you look at the S&P and the influencers that are part of that. You had names like Smuckers and Gap Stores, Salesforce, of course, because of the entry into the Dow. And then in the post-market, what did we hear? Well, we got the earnings delivery from Salesforce. Extraordinary numbers, absolutely off the charts. And then you look at some of the guidance for the full year, again, off the charts. And you look at this name, if those numbers are anywhere close to correct with the price after this extraordinary run to the upside, you're still looking at a stock that does trade with a little bit of a premium to the PE. It's trading around a 64, 65 PE, give or take. But when you look at that growth and you look at all the acquisitions that have been made, very high dollar amount acquisitions, building into what Mark Benioff has been doing, it looks like that's starting to really show up now in some of the numbers. And then obviously with the forecast, some of the numbers that are going to be coming out in the future. So they crushed it. Toll Brothers crushed it. So again, been talking about its thin number of stocks that really are coming out with the earnings. And we talked about Smucker already. But when we see some of these numbers, they are spectacular. And when we look particularly anything that's related towards the internet and e-commerce, that certainly is something that's something where Salesforce is a part of the back end of that. But you look at some of these numbers from some of these companies that have been reporting all the way from Target and Walmart into many of the other names that if they have e-commerce presence, they've been doing much better. Take a look at Dick's Sports, as a matter of fact, is another great example of that. Incredible numbers there as well on the digital side. So biotech had a pretty decent day yesterday, up about 1.5%. Obviously, Amgen being an influencer there. The semiconductors, well, once again, everybody says there's 5 names, and yet you look at the semiconductors, none of those names are in that list, but they are hitting 52-week highs, all-time highs. It almost seems like each and every day. And it's names like AMD, Micron, Intel, even some of those big power names on top of the NVIDIAs and some of the big, the high PE names as well. So today on this hump day, what are we looking at? Well, it's pretty interesting because the opening indications were pretty flat. And almost immediately, we started to see a little bit of shift on that and a little bit of selling on the Dow. But early on, relatively flat. Now, what was holding it in those positions? Well, on the solid side, on the bullish side, we were seeing names like Apple and Microsoft and Intel. On the other side, industrial names, some of the financial names. You look at Boeing, you look at 3M, you look at Raytheon, all pulling on the Dow. So that was sort of the push and pull, and those pushing to the upside, losing. The pull is to the downside. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the Dow right now, down about 55 points. And meanwhile, look over at the NASDAQ. It's been up over 80 points. It's up 73 points right now. It was started the day up about 40 points, moved up about 50 points. A lot of those names, Workday and Netflix, Facebook, Adobe, Tesla, Apple, just across the board, a pretty nice broad swipe of different names, even in different categories, not just tech. But of course, tech certainly does stand out today, no doubt about it. And then you look over at Salesforce on an incredible number after already running into 52-week highs and then exploding off of that. Just certainly something that absolutely stands out. Now, when we look over at energy and some of those metals that we talk about, gold and silver, and we talk about crude all the time, not really doing a whole heck of a lot. So not a lot to really cover there. Volatility index, we're trading at 2183. I said 21.5 to 22.5. We're right in that range. And it's been very, very tight. You look at the 10-year, and that's kind of interesting because it's slowly and steadily starting to move and edge up just a little bit. It's at 0.7 right now, so something I think to keep an eye on for sure. The industrials and healthcare, yeah, that's off early. But you look at certain other names, look at the electrical vehicle market, and we talk about those volumes all the time. NIO, Tesla, some of these names have just been on absolute fire in terms of the volume and some of the violent moves, mostly to the upside, some in Tesla's case to the downside as well. But I look at NIO, and it seems like each and every day there's just more and more option paper trading there. And obviously the bullish tint to what we're seeing there certainly is reflected. And you see that movement that we're seeing there as well. Take a look at where that stock has been just over the last week or so. Just an extraordinary move to the upside. Doesn't mean this lasts forever. Doesn't mean it lasts even for the rest of the day. But that is what we've been seeing, and that's been a pretty violent move to the upside. That was one of the unusuals that we put up not too long ago. So quiet early. I think when we look across, didn't see nearly as much option paper on the unusual side as what we had been seeing, but the bullish sentiment's still there for sure. The unusual option activity certainly swayed towards right now. We're seeing a lot of tech, but I'm going to take it the other way right now. JP Morgan. Now, I already mentioned financials down a little bit. Not bad, but financials down a little bit. They've had a hard time getting started. We talk about JP Morgan all the time, that $100 level. It seems to be so difficult to penetrate and actually sustain up above 100, and that it's sooner or later it seems like it falls right back down into the upper or middle 90s. Well, right now flirting right at $100. So that's right there looking to see, is there going to be a potential for a breakout? Now, here's the interesting thing. Everything has been very, very short term. Very short term. I'm talking about the amount of the unusual option activity yesterday that was expiring in August, which means Friday, August 28th, has been extraordinary. And then even going out to September 4th, that seems to be where all the paper is. Now, with JP Morgan, they're going for October, so they're buying a little bit of time. It's not just a September expiration. They're going all the way out to October, so buying a little bit of time. Stock trading right at 100, bought 12,000 of the October 105 calls. Those are going for about 260. That was spread off, which I think is a very smart move, spread off by selling the October 15 calls, getting about 80 cents. So that whole trade, if you add it up, it's about $1.80. So call it close to $2 for a $10 spread. That's that risk reward that oftentimes that I'm looking for. Is it a 4 or 5 multiple? And in this case, it absolutely is. So is this going to happen? Who knows? They have been trying forever, it seems like, in JP Morgan to see, can there be a sustainable move over 100? So we will find out. But certainly that unusual option activity absolutely stands out for a couple of reasons. One, going out to October, and two, just an unusual to see. Is JP Morgan ready to absolutely make a move and actually sustain something up and over that 105 level? There's a couple of months of time right now for these to perform. So that one did stand out, unusual option activity. If you don't understand some of the things that I'm talking about here in terms of premiums and time frame and all the rest of that, knowledge is king. You've got to get educated, and you get educated by going to the best in the business, the Market Rebellion team. We got the best mentors, the best coaches you'll ever find. They do an absolutely outstanding job. I'm proud of what they do. They don't guarantee success, but they certainly open up the opportunities for greater success. There's no doubt about that in my mind. If you have the knowledge, you have a much better chance of having the opportunities that are laid out in front of you, and the best way to approach it. Because there are so many different ways, and they're able to show you all those different ways to approach the exact same outcome, just in a different way. So I would certainly tell you that I think that is the way to go, and definitely get that knowledge first, because you jump right in There can be disappointment early on, and you really don't understand. If you have success early on, maybe you didn't have it for all the right reasons. That's why you really have to understand what's going on in the derivatives markets. And oh, by the way, yesterday again, well, we traded, let's see, 26.7 million contracts yesterday. So another really busy day of option trading as well. Folks, have a great day of trading. And by the way, AJ Monty and myself, we're going to be having a webinar this afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 Eastern. And we're just going to be kicking around a lot of what he's doing and a lot of what he's going to be offering for folks at the Market Rebellion. Have a great day.